Welcome to another program. It's Thursday, February 12th. My name is Brian Burchette, and this is David Koci, and we'll be hosting tonight. And we have a great program for you guys tonight. We have Christopher T. George, author, talking about the War of 1812 and some of his books. Always a pleasure. Opening for Christopher T. George, we have a very well-known writer that I've watched his program air all over the internet, and it gets a lot of people, folks. Prasanna Kumar. And with that, we're going to have Prasanna Kumar open the program with his poetry, his visions for the world, and for the next 15 minutes, be thrilled.
Okay. Thanks, Anton. Thanks, Devi and Chris. Chris is often comes to us, and he's such a beautiful and historical poet. And his presentations always, have this historical significance. And Francis, thanks for having me. Brian, you've been a wonderful host for us, and thank you for welcome. Beautiful welcome. We have this Fertil Brains group, a community called Fertil Brains, wherein poets come from all across the world and in all the countries from far east and Europe, even Russia, in Kazakhstan, Australia, New Zealand, the Spanish countries, and yes, of course, North America. And we have a, kind of, it's a kind of community that builds up with love, harmony, brotherhood, and on the way, there is no borders. What we feel is that a thread of humanity. Humanity is that which connects us throughout. So we try to have this, every time, every week. So it is that. So the basic idea of that is what connecting people, connecting with love, affection. So that is it. And I am going to present some few what do you call poems. So the love through literature, the purpose is to purpose is to promote literature from around the world, and the focus is on the culture and the languages and thoughts, and bring peace, like what I said earlier, peace and harmony through poetic voices. So I think I could just present few of my poems, and it's a very short one. You would like it. Uh, shall I go? Shall I begin? Yeah. Shall
Go
I
for
begin?
it.
Yeah. Thank you. You stay within. Never try to wander about. Everything is for a reason. Don't you think of this notion? Yes, we take a pause and cease to exist for us others. Nevertheless, we are in the realm of within the abode of creator of the universe. Who do you think you are? You are none but the creation of insentient supremacy, otherwise known as Almighty. That's a first piece. Second piece is about the new year, arrival of the new year. You said that the year has arrived, and I believe there is no such to be derived and desired. It might be for you for the time it is those same moments the cycle pedals forward to move with a pace without a trace of yours. You may count days and nights. You may count suns and moons. It might be for you the race seasons, winters, summers, and rainfall of springs, autumns of uncharted dreams, petrichor of April sweat. Ah, and I believe there is no such. As the breeze swiftness, so the wind unfolds. So that's about the arrival of now New Year. It's a quite a philosophical one. And the third piece, that is what I am trying to express, is like you take a pause and see, how much it is needed. taking a breath here to get myself out of cacophony of mundane thoughts. Where to go to stop this gushing stream of endless feelings, to go inside within, or to go away searching for a way island. In the ocean of tumultuous noises, I find myself raising my voice to utter out that knowing the core essence of my sane sign. I try to sing and hum out the humdrum, one thing with some reason, or maybe with unruly fashion, distracting my vision. Well, whatever it is, nothing to be mattered, taking a breather with a sound roar. I am trying to make my voice hear. So that is my third piece. It was untest. It's about a nature thing. Fourth one. A breeze whispered in my ears, said something unsound. What I heard perturbed my core. I was a sensitive sophomore. The incident whirled and made me hardcore, heavy-headed. Nothing should be falling into ears that is unpleasant and bittersweet. Yet I became stone-faced with no emotions moved me to move ahead. No feelings nudged to shed tears. No joy I felt to be jived at. No pain touched me to shake my mood. I thank the fire which rendered me the way I am now. I am untouched. So that is about the fifth one. As the time passes by, this is fifth one. I'm ending this with the last one. Every day seems to pass, yet time froze to go across beyond minutes and hours. Night seems to miss those rapturous moments of a moment that time seized from the hands of the seasons, halting the tides of aeons. Years have gone by. As the time stopped clicking, the clock went mute, became stand still, being motionless. Emotions went dry. No cry heard for a long time, nor smiles wafted along the bridges. Still, every day seems to pass. Everything now remained just to be nothing with no moon, no sun. They may be taking rest, and the tempest of times is at rest. Thank you, my dear friend.
Very good.
Very good.
I'm going to read a poem and I'm going to turn it over to David. This was a poem I'd sent to the Paris Review in New York and they turned it down. And I always thought it was one of my most refined pieces, so I'm going to read it here and I hope everybody thinks it's refined. If not, I still will. The verdure. The verdure of the garden, a young sapling grows by the brook. Cynicals set cross-legged in blades of grass, quoting verse about the trees. They want to be cosmic and understand. As nature abounds, there is a sound. Sometimes it's the melancholy owl. Sometimes it's just a coyote's howl. In a land of trees, there are reasons that I believe nature gives me that sound. The crickets are profound as the fireflies in the evening. The verdure of the garden, yeah. Young sapling, one day you will be a big tree. As nature abounds, there is a sound. Rustle of branches and wind. It's the melancholy, I believe. It's the trees. I want proof of reincarnation in me. Asking for a miracle in a forest, seeking nature at dawn. Soon we will see the river just moving, moving, moving. The skip of the record seemed to project a nature-like pastoral moment with a field aglow at dawn. As the farmers rise to greet a glimpse of light, as the workmen put their boots on at dusk, they all saw the verdure of the garden from their view, and they all know the nature of the land. Thank you.
That's very good.
And I want to thank KKumar for that excellent intro there for Christopher. I've been really waiting to be on your show or have you on one of our shows, and it looks like I'll have to get on your show next now. Make up for it. And that's a quite early rise. So, but anyway, David, we're going to start out with Chris, and do you want to do a song real quick before Chris starts?
Yeah, let's have some music.
Yeah, we want a song. Play us a song, David.
Yeah. I have to go get to you. Yeah.
Can't hear you, David.
You have no sound, David.
Last time we talked, you mentioned Johnny Cash, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you like Johnny Cash?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this, with gratitude for you, sharing with us your history information twice, and I thought that I would play a Johnny Cash song for you, and for everybody else. So.
Fabulous.
All right. So this is one that a friend of mine did. A friend and I we did this a while back. We did it was like during COVID, the beginning of the pandemic and stuff. It was kind of like I don't know, an ode to the circumstance, I guess. So this is called "Ain't No Grave" by Johnny Cash. I'm sure maybe most of y'all have heard it, so it's a good song, I think. Can I hear my guitar okay?
Very good. Perfect.
All right, this is "Ain't No Grave" by Johnny Cash.
Very good.
Yeah, wow. It's great.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, does anybody have anything to share before we start turning this over for Christopher T. George? Okay. Well, last week we decided that we were going to discuss the War of 1812 this week. And here we are a week later. And very excited about it. And I'm going to turn it all over to Christopher T. George and let him handle how he wants to show this to us.
Yeah, if you will, I'm going to be telling you about my journey to the War of 1812, which is part of it. Last week we did Edgar Allan Poe, and there are going to be one or two surprises coming up. I wrote about Edgar Allan Poe in a Poe tour of Baltimore that I did for Maryland Magazine in 1974. And it wasn't until nearly 20 years later that I really got into the War of 1812. And so we're going to be talking about all of that. And let me call up my program here. Should be able to see that.
Wow.
Yeah, this is at Fort McHenry, one of the cannons of the reenactors. Let's see if I can move it onwards. Come on. Whoa. Having some trouble here. Yeah, wait a minute. Slideshow. From the beginning. Here we go. Yeah, so this is 1812 era cannon reconstructed, and I'll show you one or two other things from the era of the War of 1812. They aren't actually old cannons, but they've recreated them. And this is the cover of my book, Terror on the Chesapeake, War of 1812 on the Bay. And you're free to order it. It's available. And this is, again, reenactors at Fort McHenry firing a replica cannon of the day. And here's the big flag flying over Fort McHenry. And that, of course, is now the national anthem of this country. Comes from Francis Scott Key being able to see that big flag. And I'm hopeful with everything that's going on in this country that our celebration of the flag and what America should be should bring us back to where we all should be. So this is some artwork by Chris White, Fort McHenry, with Fort McHenry under threat from the British bombardment fleet, September 13th, 1814. Oh. And actually during the bombardment itself. One of the things a lot of people don't understand is that the big flag was not flying actually during the bombardment. It was bad weather. And Fort McHenry Commander Major George Armistead from Newmarket Plantation, Milford, Gloucester County, Virginia, ordered this big flag, 42 feet long by 30 feet tall, big enough for the British to see out in the bay. And this shows Mary Pickersgill sewing the flag with her daughter and her mother, and they actually had it on the floor of a local brewery to sew it down by the flag house in Baltimore. And this shows actually a mistaken view of, they thought the big flag was flying. It actually wasn't flying, as I say. The existing Star Spangled Banner is much shorter than it used to be, and there's also a star missing. And the reason for this is that Major Armistead died soon after the war, and for years afterwards his family would give little pieces of the flag to visitors also it's thought that perhaps the one star that's missing might have been given to the Marquis de Lafayette when he toured the United States in the 1820s. Of course, Revolutionary War hero. And here is the big flag, and this is the troops cheering as the British left the bay, or left the Patapsco, I should say. They were unable to get past Fort McHenry. And this is my mum and I arriving in the United States, January 30th, 1955. My father, that you see at the lower right, had preceded us. He was a physical therapist. He was looking for somewhere to emigrate to. And we came aboard the RMV Saxonia from Liverpool in January. And he actually met us at the docks in New York City. And soon after I arrived, I was given this set of flashcards. And one of them showed the mortar bombs from the British ships coming down over the fort. And I was kind of fascinated by that, these little black dots, but I really didn't think much more of it. And there were these two guys in Liverpool, not in, what am I saying? I'm from Liverpool, in Baltimore, Edgar Allan Poe and Francis Scott Key. Two guys with three names. That's crazy, man. So, you know, and I really didn't know anything more about it, but in time I would learn. And here's a colorized view of the same picture. And this is me flying between England and the US. My parents were very nice in allowing me to go back to England in the 1950s, and then in 1960 I actually went back to Liverpool to go to school. And my uncle, my grandfather's elder brother, Billy Matchett, was a vaudeville or music hall comedian, and he arranged for a man named George Harrison, not that George Harrison, but a George Harrison who was a writer for the Liverpool Echo, to write this article about me. And you can tell it's before terrorism or anything, because I'm right there, and my father was able to photograph me right at the ladder into the plane. And this is me in school in England. I attended Quarrybank High School, which was one of two schools that I went to. Now, that is the same school that John Lennon went to. And you can see him wearing the same tie there. It's a black and gold tie. And this is in the final days before he was assassinated. And I did this watercolor and pen and ink drawing of Quarrybank High School. The Beatles were originally called the Quarrymen, after the name of the school. Pete Shotton, who was a classmate of John, and he were a couple of the original members of the Quarrymen. And so I was quite interested in local history. Down the road from where I lived, there was this local monastic grange dating to 1292, which was run by monks from an abbey across the Mersey at a place called Stanlaw, Ellesmere Port. The remains of it can still be seen there, although I've been so far unable to visit it. This is Liverpool Castle, built in the 13th century, no longer surviving. Liverpool actually did have a pool, which you can see on the left-hand side of this conjectural painting. So that's where Liverpool gets its name, the pool.
Wow.
And this is a memorial to the boilermen, the stokers in the Titanic.
Ooh.
Most of the crew from the Titanic were from the Liverpool area. Indeed, the captain, Captain Edward Smith, was from Liverpool, and the Titanic never came to Liverpool. She was a Liverpool registry vessel, but she left Belfast and then sailed from Southampton on the fatal voyage in April 1912 when she hit the iceberg. If you look in the distance there, you can see a spire. That's St. Nicholas Church. And I created this poem from the writings of Herman Melville, Redburn, his first voyage, 1849, the dead house at the old church of St. Nicholas, Liverpool. Whenever I passed up Chapel Street, I used to see a crowd gazing through the grim iron grating of the door upon the faces of the drowned within. And once, when the door was opened, I saw a sailor stretched out, stark and stiff, with the sleeve of his frock rolled up and showing his name and date of birth tattooed upon his arm. It was a sight full of suggestions. He seemed his own headstone. So again, that's what you might call a found poem based on Herman Melville's writings before he wrote Moby Dick. And this is the pinnacle of the famous liver buildings with the liver bird. And it's believed that the liver bird actually comes from the ancient seal of Liverpool, which showed an eagle with seaweed in its beak. This was actually lost, this seal, during the Civil War. The castle was actually besieged by the Royalists, and the parliamentarians were holding the castle, and they were slaughtered by the Royalists. And this is my first wife, Susan. She was a fellow poet. As you can see, she was a dancer, and we actually butted heads, both being poets and artists. However, we married twice. More fool me, but you know. Anyway, in the early 1990s, I took her younger daughter, the young lady at the top right, to a class southeast of Baltimore at Dundalk Community College. And I was driving down that way, and I saw this sign saying Battle Grove Road, Old Battle Grove Road, I should say. Here's another sign showing that. And so I began to wonder, you know, what type of battle it was. Was it to do with the Civil War or what? And then I didn't think it had anything to do with this that I'd been given, as I say, in the 1950s, Fort McHenry. Could it have something to do with the Civil War? Harry Gilmore was the son of a local Scottish ancestry family, and he actually raided around the Baltimore area. And I had been to both Antietam and to Gettysburg and wrote this poem about Antietam. A squirrel scrambles where a soldier died. I sit on a lichened rock in a wood where on that one day every living thing was blasted from the trees. On this damp dirt below my heel, brother murdered brother, the dead piled chest deep in public carnage. I've seen the photographs of those brothers laid back in that terrible sleep, faces pale in the morning aftermath, jackets once blue or grey, united in shades of grey. And so I began to research, and I found out that the Battle of North Point occurred September the 12th, 1814. The British had actually landed an army southeast of Baltimore and started to march up the peninsula. And this is the same painting that you see on the left there that I used on the cover of my book. It's a painting by Don Troiani of the 5th Maryland Militia fighting the British, and they are the forerunners of today's Maryland National Guard. And of course, on the right, you see Francis Scott Key looking out at the flag. The fort had survived, and that is what led to, of course, the Star-Spangled Banner. And one of the activities that I'm involved with now is my friend Bob Cummins has written a book called Monumental Anthem, how the descendants of the defenders of Baltimore worked to make the Star-Spangled Banner the song of the national anthem. Otherwise, it could have been some other song, America the Beautiful, My Country 'Tis of Thee, whatever. And also, I found out that the British general had been killed soon after landing. And I wrote this book with John McCavitt, this is him on the right with his wife, and the former governor of Maryland, Martin O'Malley. And we were here at the celebration of the anniversary of the War of 1812 bicentennial. And of course, the Chesapeake Bay is quite a long bay, 200 miles long. The British declared a blockade of the U.S. East Coast at the end of 1812, and from that time onwards, very few ships were able to get out of the Chesapeake Bay except in bad weather. Now here he is, and his name is pronounced two different ways. If you're British, you say Coburn, but of course the Americans said Cockburn. And when at the end of the Battle of Bladensburg, apparently Commodore Barney, as I'll be telling you a little while, was wounded, and Coburn and Ross came up to the wounded Barney and said, "You gave us the best fighting we had today." And Coburn introduced himself, and of course Barney said, "Oh, we pronounce your name Cockburn." And that's a painting of Coburn with the burning buildings of Washington, D.C. behind it. And as we'll be talking about in a little while, that burning need not have happened, but nevertheless it did. He only became a Sir later on when he took Napoleon to his second exile on St. Helena in the southern Pacific. And Coburn had been raiding around the Chesapeake as early as May 1813. He burned 2/3 of the town of Havertide. Right in the middle of this period lithograph is a Congreve rocket battery. And of course, this was a kind of secret weapon that the British had, that they were able to fire these Congreve rockets at the Americans and kind of panic the Americans, to be truthful, because a lot of them had not fired a shot in anger. Most of the Chesapeake was left to the defense of the militia. The best troops were sent up to Canada, as we'll be discussing shortly. In 1814, Vice Admiral Sir Alexander Cochrane took over as chief of the North American station. He had an inveterate hatred of Americans. Apparently his brother had been killed at the Battle of Yorktown at the end of the Revolution. And he issued this proclamation offering freedom to any African-American slaves who would care to flee to the British. This followed a model that had happened in the American Revolution, when the then governor of Virginia did a similar sort of thing. And we believed that as many as 3,000 to 4,000 former slaves were actually transported out, most of them to Canada, but there were 200 former able-bodied male slaves who fought for the British and were trained on Tangier Island, as you can see with the square there in the Southern Bay. And this is a sketch that I did of the former slaves being trained as what they call colonial marines. And I actually had a kind of strange discussion, if you will, with a young man at Fort McHenry a few years ago. And I told him, well, the British had a fort on Tangier Island. And he said, well, how was that possibly true? And of course, he's thinking of America today being very powerful and so on. And, you know, that wouldn't be possible today. But of course, the British were the big military power of the day. So that's the reason that they were able to have a fort and pretty much have a lock on the whole of the Chesapeake Bay. Here is the US President of the day, James Madison. And as I say in the beginning of my book, he was a whiz at the US Constitution, but much like his boss, former boss, Thomas Jefferson, didn't know much about military matters. And so they left most of the planning for the defense of Washington, D.C. to this man, U.S. Secretary of War, Brigadier General John Armstrong, Jr. And he sent the best American troops up to Canada. And I'm talking about the regulars here. America had quite a small army in a way, but most of the defense of the United States was left to militia. There were regulars in the forts, but not in general defense of the individual states. And this is William H. Winder, who was appointed to be head of the 10th Military District in 1814, only 6 weeks before the British attacked Washington, D.C. And you would think that Armstrong might have thought, oh, well, Washington, D.C. could be a target. But again, he kept denying right up to the last that Washington would be a target. Now, Madison came out. He's the only sitting president ever to come under enemy fire when he rode to the front lines during the Battle of Bladensburg. So we have to give him that credit. He was the shortest president at 5 feet 3 inches tall.
Wow.
My friend Kyle Jenks portrays James Madison. And this shows the British at Bladensburg, northeast of Washington, D.C., attacking over a bridge over what was then called the eastern branch of the Potomac, now known as the Anacostia River. And the British were pretty much able to push back the militia. These were trained troops, about 4,500 of them, against maybe as many as 6,000 Americans, but mostly militia, not well arranged. And this shows from a 1945 book, Neil Swanson's The Perilous Fight, of militiamen being panicked by these Congreve rockets. Now, Coburn actually made the statement that you could try to fire a Congreve rocket at the Houses of Parliament and you wouldn't hit it. However, this was enough. They went on a kind of wavery line, and but it was enough to panic militia who had not been in battles previously. And this shows the U.S. Marines at Bladensburg in a kind of last stand. Also with them was Commodore Joshua Barney, who'd suggested a Chesapeake Bay flotilla to try to defend the Chesapeake. And Commodore Barney was wounded in the left thigh, and then invalided out. Here is Coburn and Ross tending to him. As I say, they did give him the accolade that he and his men had given them the best fighting of the day. Now, there was this poem that came out in 1816, 2 years after the battle, kind of using legend and so on, and talking about the Bladensburg races as if it was a total demolition of the Americans, which it pretty much was, to be truthful. But we do believe, based on the research that John McCavitt and I did, that Madison was there towards the end of the battle and that he actually saw Commodore Barney being captured. At any rate, most of the people in Washington had fled. Shots rang out as the British came into the city, and that's what led to the burning of the city. In fact, Mayor Blake declared ahead of time that he would not surrender the city. And because these shots rang out, Ross's horse, second horse that he'd been riding during the day, was killed from underneath him. Several of the British soldiers were killed, and that's again what led to the burning of the buildings of Washington, D.C., which possibly might not have happened if they'd have surrendered the city. Things were different in terms of Baltimore. Major General Samuel Smith was a Revolutionary War veteran from Carlisle, Pennsylvania, born in 1752. He had been in a lot of the battles of the Revolution, including at what would later become Fort Mifflin, or Mud Island, that Frank possibly knows. I was there a few years ago, and the guide who was taking us round said, "Oh, there was nobody famous here." Well, Samuel Smith was the temporary commander there during the time that the British came up the Delaware River, so he was one famous guy, and he saved Baltimore in 1814. Working under him, Brigadier General John Stricker, again another Revolutionary War veteran. And Stricker was sent down with about 3,800 troops down the Patapsco Neck towards where the British were coming up the peninsula. And so General Smith had correctly anticipated where the British were going to land. And this shows a romanticized view of the shooting of General Ross. We believe that instead of him being surrounded like soldiers like this, that shooting had broken out and he actually turned around to bring troops up. But in any case, he was shot, and you can see in the distance at the left a couple of riflemen shooting at him. And Baltimore legend gives these guys, Asquith sharpshooters, the honor of having shot General Ross, but we don't know that for certain. There were two particular riflemen, Daniel Wells and Henry Goff McComas, who were killed the same place that Ross was. And this is Asquith sharpshooters as recreated today. See them at the bottom there. And this is the marker where General Ross was shot, where on September the 12th, 1814, the defenders of Baltimore under Brigadier General John Stricker led the advancing British Army, met the advancing British Army, 7,000. That's actually an overestimate. We believe that the British had more, 4,500. And this is the Defenders Day program from 2023, dedicated to John Buzz Christ. He is the guy who got together these recreated Asquith sharpshooters. And here you can see him leading the troops. He wrote a Defenders Day or a Defenders Trail handbook for local Boy Scouts. I went out to a military conference in Lexington, Kentucky, and Ted Alexander, who was the historian of Antietam, was there. And I said, we'd like to establish a Defenders Trail according to the way Buzz Christ wanted to do it in the Dundalk area, but have it all around the Chesapeake. And Ted said, you don't want to call it that. Call it the Star Spangled Banner Trail. And of course, that's it. That's what everybody knows. Everybody knows the Star Spangled Banner. So that's what helped us get the trail markers put all around the Chesapeake to trace all the things that happened during the War of 1812. Colonel Arthur Brooke took over from General Ross. He was another Irishman like Ross was, and he actually came from a more prestigious family than General Ross did. One of his descendants became Lord Brookborough and was Prime Minister of Northern Ireland in the 1960s when the Troubles started, and I stayed on the Brookborough estate in County Fermanagh during the later part of my trip to Ireland in 1992 that I'll talk about in a few moments. Also, if you know World War II history, one of the top generals, along with Lord Montgomery, was Viscount Alan Brooke, and his name actually was Alan Brooke, and he was part of the same family. This shows Brooke fighting the Americans, and the British sent the 4th Regiment, as you see at the top of the map, which kind of started the disintegration of the American line. But the American line had done enough. On September the 12th, they'd caused about 150 casualties to the British. And although the Americans retreated back to Baltimore, they'd done the job of causing a problem to the British, that this wasn't going to be the same easy march and easy battle that Washington had been. And this again is that Don Troiani painting of the 5th Maryland Militia at the Battle of North Point. So, right after the battle, the British bombardment fleet moved closer to Fort McHenry and started bombarding on the morning of September 13th to 14th. Also, the Americans had sunk ships in the channel, so the British were unable to get past the fort. And despite the fact that there was a diversion on the night of September the 14th, which may have led to an assault on the fort, or maybe just a distraction in favor of the British Army, they were unable to capture the fort. But you can see the British troops at the top of the map facing the American defenses, and they had defenses on what is now Patterson Park, and this is it was known as Hampstead Hill or Chinkapin Hill. You can see it at the top of the map there. This is a map by a a British admiral, Admiral Malcolm. So Colonel Brooke was faced with the decision of what to do. He'd received a note from Admiral Cochrane saying, "We believe Baltimore is defended by as many as 20,000 troops. It's up to you to decide what to do." And Colonel Brooke wrote in his diary, "If I took the place, I'd be the greatest man in England. If I lost, my military character would be gone forever." So he just decided to withdraw back to the ships. And this is a pagoda on the hill at Patterson Park with a memorial to the Star-Spangled Banner, as well as a park of the cannons from the era of the War of 1812. Captain Thomas Boyle's privateer Chasseur was hailed as the pride of Baltimore when it sailed past Fort McHenry on her return to Baltimore on April 1815. So that is the forerunner of today's Pride of Baltimore, which is a ship that traveled all around the world as kind of a advertisement of Baltimore, if you will. This is an interesting picture. George Roberts was a black gunner aboard the Chasseur, and for years afterwards he was allowed to march to the battle monument that you see at the lower left, usually as the servant of the general. So he lived as late as the Civil War, and in the obituaries, local journalists noted that he had declared in regard to the brewing conflict, "Not a feather on the eagle's head should be disturbed." So in 1992, I went to Ireland, to County Down, and in the distance you can see the white monument to General Ross, looking from Ross Trevor, where he had land, toward Carlingford Loch, the Big Bay, and Warren Point. And this is driving into Ross Trevor, and Narrow Water Castle at the top right is interesting because there'd been an incident same time that Lord Mountbatten was blown up by the IRA in Sligo in west of Ireland. A farm wagon blew up and killed some British soldiers outside that castle. And at the bottom you can see a house where I stayed, which had been owned by the Ross family. It had become a convent by the time I stayed there. And interestingly, I had breakfast one morning with an Irish priest, and I was telling him about the Ross Monument, and he said, well, it could have been blown up like Nelson's column on O'Connell Street in Dublin. Luckily, that has not happened. Another aspect is, if you look very carefully at the top left picture, you see an Irish Republican flag. Well, here we are in the north of Ireland, and I was told by one of the locals, "Oh, that's just for Irish rugby." Well, no. The Catholic villages had Irish Republican flags. The Protestant villages had the Union Jack, as on Frank's mug. And this is me in 1992 when I was doing that research over there. Again, that's the same convent that I just showed you. And that's the monument on the right there. When I was there, it was that IRA graffiti on all four sides of it. I was able to meet a descendant of General Ross who had this big portrait of him and a selection of swords that had belonged to General Ross. I've mentioned to Frank that there's a series of videos put out by an organization called Baltimore Heritage, in which they tell some 1812 history, and Johns Hopkins, if that's his real name, who is the person who speaks on these videos, said that Ross is buried in his home village in Ireland. That's categorically untrue. He's in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I wish Mr. Hopkins would get his facts straight. And more recently, the monument has been restored, and there was actually this ceremony there with the Star Spangled Banner. Wrote a couple of poems based on my going to Ireland. Boney before. At Rostrevor, the Clockmore stone hangs on the mountain of morn above the integrated primary school where I speak. A sentinel now, as it has been for millennia. I cannot wait to return to the Whistledown, luxuriate in the hot tub and rest in your arms. We reach Belfast just as the tall ships are entering the lock. Catch the train by the Europa Hotel, bombed during the Troubles by the IRA. At Carrickfergus, the RAF's red arrows stream trails of red, white and blue as they daredevil the skies of Northern Ireland. We saunter down to the waterfront with its forbidding castle's keep, a sunset and poppies wall declaring at the going down of the sun, and in the morning we will remember them with a sentinel soldier. Now we're at the Andrew Jackson ancestral cottage at Boney before, and the leaden skies unload on us the tall ships and Andy Jackson's memory as we await the caretaker, loafers soaked despite our umbrella. And these are rock-cut graves at a place called Heysham, and it was from there that my wife Donna and I took the ferry from Heysham to Warren Point for me to speak at a 1812 conference held in Rostrevor in 2015, last time I was in Ireland. And this is a poem that I made up, not really to do with my wife and I, but I had the idea of it from the passage that we made. Passage to Ulster. At the penultimate instant I take passage below the rock-cut graves of St. Patrick's Chapel that tonight fill with snow, the breakers pounding the seawall, pretending a rough passage, litany of the shipping forecast, Finisterre, Stornoway, Dogger, but peace has stilled my Bofors gun, its staccato report as lost as your words written to me over the many seasons, as a snow squall parts long enough to see the cliffs of Man. I recall a ghost walk we made once in the dark monastery grounds, the wraith-like guide in a black coat with creaking whale oil lantern, your ivory ankle. So, Siobhan, do you still wait for me by the mullioned window, carving the months like runes in the County Down granite, marking time till I walk to you along the lane with its pollarded limes? Or have you met another? Am I to seek solace in a cold pub meal, my smoky Bushmills, alone with your lilac-scented letters tied with scarlet ribbon? Getting back to last week, we talked about Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe's grandfather, David Poe Sr., was born in Londonderry. I've misspelled that, sorry about that. Or Derry, as it's known today, in 1742. He served as quartermaster in Baltimore during the American Revolution. During the Battle of Baltimore, even though now in his 70s, he came out as a volunteer militiaman and fought at the Battle of North Point on September the 12th, 1814. This is Poe's original grave, where he was buried behind the present-day church that's there. But then he was reburied under this big monument at the corner of Green and Fayette Streets. And here, of course, is famous actor Vincent Price, and a couple of recent photographs of the same monument. Now, the only famous person at the rededication of his grave in which he's buried with his late wife, Virginia, and his mother-in-law and aunt, Maria Clem, was Walt Whitman. And if by your leave, if I still have time, I'd like to read some things by Whitman, if I may.
Oh, you have plenty of time.
Okay. All right. This monument was built after a campaign of pennies by local school children, which is also noteworthy to note. And here is Walt Whitman in old age. He had been a male nurse during the Civil War, and that story touched me and made me want to write about him. But I'm going to read first of all this poem by Whitman about the death of Abraham Lincoln. O Captain, my Captain. O Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every wrack. The prize we sought is won. The port is near, the bells I hear, the people all exulting, while follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. But oh heart, 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 oh the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. O Captain, my Captain, rise up and hear the bells, rise up, for you the flag is flung, for you the bugle trills, for you bouquets and ribbon wreaths, for you the shores are crowding, for you they call the swaying mass, their eager face turning. Here, Captain, dear father, this arm beneath your head, it is some dream that on the deck you've fallen cold and dead. My captain does not answer. His lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm. He has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored safe and sound, its voyage closed and done. From fearful trip the victor ship comes in with object won. Exult, O shores, and ring, O bells, but I with mournful dread walk the deck, my captain lies, fallen, cold, and dead. And this is a poem that I wrote about him being a male nurse during the Civil War. Walt Whitman Suite. I came to find my brother. I traveled to the front to find my brother. I found an army of brothers, in truth, 2 armies of brothers. For our enemy, broken and dislimbed boys, we also cared for. I clean and dress their wounds. The many balls demonstrate devastation to a shoulder or the stub of a leg. Boys, I know you well. I find me in you, brother of Rochester, Passaic, Missouri, Georgia, in torment, the moon vague behind dark clouds. Oh, such a night to dance with your love. Here time and reverie bloat like a corpse. Peace becomes a limb severed by the surgeon. You lie in our nation's capital on rotten straw. You beg me for water in the monument's shadow. In Judiciary Square, below the scales of justice, weighing your lives, weighing what I am to you. I wet your lips with a sponge, your quizzical look as you wonder who I am, while the shock of death and degradation creep closer. Boy, I will write to your mother. At last night light, I will close your eyes. 2. Washington at war. I often see the president, his brown donut complexion, the deep etched lines that reflect the dead piled up from this war, corpses floating down river, lost in gullies, in cold unknown graves all across our nation, ragged corpses, bleached bones, tarnished brass, rictus of grinning teeth. My lodging house on Pennsylvania Avenue smells bad, aroma of cabbage from the Irish woman's quarters below. I lingered by the bed of a Georgia boy this morning. Shot through the lung, death soothed his brow. I held his hot, soft hand tenderly for an hour. At his request, read to him about resurrection. Now the war is over. The victorious Blue Army marches down the wide boulevards. The president removes his hat in respect to the thousands of troops who parade with battle-worn uniforms, brass bands, fifes, drums, their regimental flags, tattered memorials to the dead. Each ensign a beautiful woman, heartbroken by battle. 3. Wheeling the prophet to the river. In his wide-brimmed hat and rambling beard, Mr. Whitman revels to be out in his cane chair, headed for Camden Wharf, if aging, recovering from stroke. I push him over the uneven brick sidewalk rimed with frost. Our breath starts ahead of us. It's an effort for him as much as for me. His thin legs jiggle dance under the plaid blanket. Soon we are overlooking the Delaware. A ripe smell of sawn pine suffuses our nostrils. He says, "Breathe the scent, devour the river air." Walt Whitman, I nurse you now, as you nursed others. He mumbles an oft-told memory of his youth. A wonderful story, sir. He wafts his hat to a baritone sawmill worker who sings, who calls, "Sing, prophet, we hunger for song." And one last one. This is his tomb in Harley Cemetery in Camden, New Jersey. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. That was very wonderful to have. I feel like I went back through school and everything they never told me.
Yeah, I hope you got a few things you might not know.
Well, it's just amazing when you live somewhere and the things you see that you can take pictures of. Like I recently took some shots and I sent them to my admin because there's a place called The End. And it's a little bar and they have these t-shirts they were promoting. But I thought, I walk by that place all the time when I come home. And I never say nothing. So I went down there and took shots with the bartender and the guy that runs the club and everything. And everybody was so happy that somebody actually took the time to come say hello,
You bet. Yeah, no, I think that's the way it should be.
And I really wish you lived in Nashville Or we could come to your town sometime because we have a lot of shows down here at a place called Betty's Grill, and I love what you do with us on the air and everything. And I imagine we do reach quite a worldwide audience in the end.
I've never been in Nashville, but I'll have to make a point of that.
Well, you'll be welcome here, sir.
Okay. Great.
Wow.
And, I love the stuff on 1812. I got a question. I saw a thing about some of it was due to financial issues. And so what was the financial issues with 1812? Was it somebody wasn't getting some money they weren't supposed to?
Well, basically, the War of 1812 was an outcome of the Napoleonic Wars. That the Americans wanted to trade with Napoleonic Europe, and the British wanted to stop that. There was also these privateers like the Pride of Baltimore that I showed, and the Rossi, which was a privateer with Commodore Barney before he suggested his flotilla. And so there were a lot of difficulties. And in 1807, there'd been an incident between HMS Leopard and the USS Chesapeake in the Chesapeake Bay, in which the British claimed that there were several deserters from the Royal Navy who were aboard the Chesapeake. So the Leopard stopped Chesapeake and fired some shots and so on, and took these several men off. And so, because one of the big problems was with the Royal Navy manpower. And so, there was this impressment of American sailors to be part of the Royal Navy. And also, as I say, these incidents that happened that these several British guys seem to have deserted to the Americans and so on. Yeah,
that's interesting. Is there anything else you want to do tonight, or? I know you did a long run with it. I'm quite sure your voice is probably feeling it.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. Remember, we got some more music from David.
We should at least end the show with David doing another song or something like that, since Pat's putting his guitar together tonight.
I'd love that.
But next time we do this, we will have Pat here with an intro to the show. And I feel like tonight's been very nice. And Francis, it's been wonderful having you here.
Thank you very much.
Always glad to have people to get into it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Anyone who shows up, we're glad to have them. Like, some people like to read, some people, like to listen, and that's.
Well, I like watching history shows, and when I watch that, I saw so many things I did not even know. So I feel like I got really schooled in history that I like.
Yeah, like I know in my history lessons in college and high school, I got to be honest, I was really into literature in high school. Was like into history, but American history, I was a little. My attention deficit issues kind of affected me. I was interested in government a little bit, like the whole conspicuous consumption, laissez-faire, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, things like that. And I don't know what I wanted to mention is that even when I took it seriously in college, the history I took, the U.S. history, we kind of skimmed over the War of 1812, and my history teacher kind of had his own kind of like idea of what it was all about, and it was really interesting hearing a really thorough. And I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it again, but I'm really grateful that I'm recording and processing these videos, because I really went back and while I was editing the last one, I really listened a lot more intensively while I was editing it, all the things you had to say about Edgar Allan Poe, and that was really interesting.
Well, in researching these things, I'm educating myself at the same time. It's really fulfilling.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, you know, it had to do with more of like the fact that the War of 1812 happened had more to do with like the relationship with France being our ally than it did, and the fact that like the Napoleonic War and the British, you know, and that sort of thing, and is what I'm understanding, right? And
Well, France was an ally in the revolution, not so much when Napoleon took power. But as I say, the Americans did want to trade with Europe.
Okay. I'm going to go back and listen to what you said because I've been trying to encourage people to join us tonight, so I need to go back and like hear some of that stuff again. But I don't want to make you have to repeat yourself.
You know, one of the other things that maybe isn't understood is that there was a big, even though, well, first of all, the British did not want to get their former colonies back. You sometimes hear the expression that the War of 1812 is the Second American Revolution. That's a term that I don't like because the British, their main intent was to protect the West Indies, their interests there, and Canada. But they were pleased that the Americans, well, maybe not that pleased, but that the Americans had their independence. They recognized the United States as a separate country.
Yeah, I imagine it helped them because, like, for instance, they didn't have to govern them anymore, but they still collected revenue.
Right. A couple of things. I mean, the Star Spangled Banner was made of English bunting. So the wall for the Star Spangled Banner came from England. Also, at the time, they had large cents made of copper. And the copper for the large cents came from Anglesey in Wales. And so they weren't able to make it in 1815 because they hadn't got the copper coming from Wales, you know. So, you know, there's a lot of economic dependency on Britain, even though they were now separate countries.
It's kind of like today, you know, where, like, I don't know, it's unfortunate the world has kind of, like, gone towards the whole law of money talks and bullshit walks, I guess, which is not necessarily
right.
correct, you know, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately it is not correct. Unfortunately, we're living under that rule, and I feel like we are. That's my 2 cents worth, but it's as if everything else that's not monetary is just not relevant or something. You know, it's really, really unfortunate because, like, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but Bowie, you know, he talked a lot about how he felt like the most innovative and true art was by people who kind of like hide from the mass media, you know, the mass communications.
Okay.
Like for instance, like graffiti, you know. I mean, people don't realize what goes into graffiti. Like, you know, when you see like a train car painted up, you know, whoever did that blew about $200 or $300 in spray paint, and went out like a thief in the night, and got no recognition for it. But it meant so much to him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for that. I've never gotten into graffiti because I don't know if it's being a redhead or whatever, but I'm always the one in the group that gets caught, you know. So,
Okay.
and I'm not a snitch, so I always get, like, you know, in the biggest trouble. So.
Well, it's not exactly graffiti, but I do like, you know, when you see street art,
Yeah.
the whole wall that's painted with a mural of some type.
Yeah, I think
I
murals
enjoy
is
that.
legitimate. Murals, I think, is the term for legitimate art, and then, like, you know, big, nice paintings, and then, like, the art that's not legitimate is called graffiti. I guess is what it is. I don't know.
Right.
How I understand. I don't know, but I still have like so much respect for that art form and just, you know, all that sort of stuff. But and the whole, like, you know, underground music scene, as far as I know, that I like participate in, it's there's this like it's like a mental philosophy called deconstruction, which is trying to help like kind of like detach your mind from the dependence on mass communications, mass media, popular philosophy, popular religion. Pretty much trying to separate the way I understand it. I mean, who knows? A lot of people probably see it differently, they define it differently, but mental deconstruction for me means like to like kind of like get away from groupthink or conventional wisdom, and try to see things as hopefully they actually are, and live by ethics that makes sense, I guess, in like more of a broad way, not just because a lot of people it's popular opinion, I guess, and people are afraid not to have that opinion because they are afraid that will prevent them from getting jobs and stuff, like
Sure.
to me it's like, I don't know, and I don't expect anybody to like openly agree with me on this verbally or anything tonight, but like unfortunately we live in a world where you have to like work to make money to survive, generally speaking. But it's really tough because if you don't present your speech or your art or whatever you're trying to do creatively to kind of like convey a point or like an idea, if you're not doing it in a way that is profitable to you, then people don't have a lot of respect for that a lot of times, especially if you don't have something that they see profitable to them potentially. Then they don't have a lot of care for it, and it kind of keeps you in the dark. But like, I know a lot of artists that are just amazing people that have had good times and bad times, really wonderful, exciting times and really hard times, because the fact that they just do what they want to do and they don't worry about the potential monetization by doing trending art,
Yeah, I'm not only a poet, I'm an artist too. Let me show you one of my paintings. It's a mural that I did of Sir Winston Churchill.
That is amazing. Wow. I had a friend, it was funny, he said that he thinks all babies look like Winston Churchill. I think that's funny. I don't know, just a silly thing.
That's the point.
But that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. That's a beautiful, like that's just cool. I've seen paintings like that before. They're kind of like a very, very focused on the shadows, I guess.
That's right. Yeah. Let me see what else I can dig up. This is photography that I've done. That looks pretty. M&M's on a sidewalk. That's, of course, just a photograph. Kind of like that one, too. That's a former sailing ship being taken away to the breaker's yard. That's just a mess-up of a Poe picture that I did.
I like that, though.
And this is, I based this on a photograph that a school friend of mine took in England. It was a reflection of a tree in a stream by a churchyard. Let's see what else. I saw that one before.
Yeah, that's very good. I love those landscapes. I've not had a lot of interest in making a lot of landscape art.
Okay.
A lot of portrait art and a lot of digital photograph manipulation using like cheap photo DV manipulation programs like for Linux or something. And that's really good. I like that. It's a rabbit, but it's a leaf, I guess.
I just thought I called it pearl leaf.
See, that's really neat that you see things like that and you take pictures of them. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I based this one on a 35mm slide of my grandfather in his garden in Liverpool.
Your line drawings are really good. That's not easy. You gotta have a real steady hand to do that right, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a painting I did.
Oh, that's really good.
That's 1967.
Oh, okay. So you've been painting for quite some time. See, I'm kind of out of practice. I've not done a lot of, like, you know, art with my hands in a while. Last time I bought a bunch of the primary colors and a black and white, and I made like a really rough galaxy. I don't know, I've got it somewhere, but you know, just like practicing like 3-dimensional stuff, you know, using just really surreal looking malformed. I made like a galaxy. I don't know. I used to like doing a mix of like oil colored pencil and chalk pastels. You know.
Okay.
I think I gave it away, but I made a picture of a Confederate soldier out of a book. But the book was a black and white picture, but I made a color picture of it, and it was. I named it Mason Dixon because half my family comes from Reelfoot Lake, so, and it's kind of on the Mason Dixon line, you know, Kentucky and Tennessee.
Yeah, I got you.
I think they lived in Kentucky, but they went to school in Tennessee or whatnot. Is how it worked out.
Right.
How it worked out, but I guess it did back then. But yeah, but that's just I made that in high school because I was in art class in high school, and I entered in a contest, and it got beat by a landscape because that was like the thing at the time, I guess, you know. And the portraits were not very. It got overlooked, I guess, but it won second place in like something, but it didn't get into like the main contest where I'd get money or anything. But that's cool. That's a really good one. I really like have a lot of respect for, like, those are very good, you know, it really honors the people in the picture. It looks like, you know, like it's just very accurate. I mean, I can imagine what the photo looked like, you know, or the image.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Like, it's good realism, you know, line drawing. That's really good. Wow.
Yeah, my friend Jeff Andrews and I did a couple of surrealistic type works.
Yeah, that looks like it could be like the picture for a movie in like the 70s or something, or the late 60s.
Well, actually, the woman that's pictured is, I believe she was an Italian actress, Verna.
I think stuff like that is really cool. Like, a lot of the dark electronic music I follow is really inspired by, like, you know, kind of like Mediterranean, you know, horror movies and stuff like that. Scary movies that are kind of sort of avant-garde from the, you know, late 60s, early 70s, kind of when Technicolor started to be using and stuff, you know. And so I find that kind of stuff really cool. I mean, sometimes it's a little too, I don't know, I get kind of like creeped out by some of those movies, but like they're pretty interesting. I mean, it's neat how they really just, a lot of them are just really make you, they're just really eerie, you know, and kind of scare you deeply, I guess. I don't know, and they're like old movies, you know. It's funny. My favorite one I ever watched, it's more of an American movie, but it's Dawn of the Dead, the original, the zombie movie. I like that one because it wasn't scary, but it was really just intelligent, I think. It was very tongue-in-cheek humor, and I liked it. So, I don't know, but some of those old ones, they can really creep you out if you take some time to watch them, yeah. And, yeah, but I'll play a song for y'all tonight. I don't know if
do that.
My mouth, so. Okay, here we go. Say your piece, live for keeps. Go to your earth this way, it's entwined. So then knots untangled and wind. Deep in the elected no more mountains to climb. I will wander through this world, hoping I'll see you again. Another time, another world that I can only imagine. Mother of my world and all I have. I will never let go. I will never bring away like it was yesterday. Then I would embrace you, just like the ledge of the canyon we fell. Well, it's been a minute, so that was not the best, but thanks y'all for listening. I wish I did my mother a little bit better justice, but yeah, thanks.
Very good.
Brian, thanks so much for having us tonight.
Thank you.
I appreciate it so much.
Well, it took all those show.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful show, Chris.
Appreciated it.
Yeah.
And we'll like to have you back
Thanks for-
anytime you want to
You bet.
All right.
Maybe I'll.
Topics of discussion at some point.
I like the fact that you did it
Like,
around because it gave it some longevity, you know?
I could do a whole Liverpool thing, Beatles, Liverpool, all that.
Well,
be interesting.
maybe
Down the
I
road.
have an idea if y'all have nothing to make Thursday. If anybody's bored in the world, we could come back and we can discuss the Beatles.
I don't know if you take requests, but have you ever studied anything about the avant-garde side of the 60s? Like more of the, I guess, off the beaten path type things? Or anything?
Well, my friend Adrian Henry, Roger McGough, Brian Hatton were beat poets in Liverpool. Yeah. So more like the Fertil Allen Ginsberg school.
Yeah.
And I actually attended an event at the Royal Albert Hall that had Allen Ginsberg and Gregory Corso and those people. And,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
I would love to do a show next week. If everyone wants to.
Or,
We can get together and we'll just kind of keep it a free form, right?
yeah, let's talk about, like, let's plan a date.
Right.
Do that off the record. And one thing I wanted to about that's interesting that you mentioned Allen Ginsberg. That's like what inspired me. I saw this crazy movie when I was in 6th grade called Naked Lunch, which is a book by William S. Burroughs.
That's famous.
Yeah, I was probably way too young to watch that, but like it blew my mind, and it really that movie and like one of my teachers inspired me to start writing poetry and stuff.
Right.
And, it's like I really had no direction as a kid. Like I had no idea what I wanted to do, and
Okay.
I liked Nirvana and I liked the Doors, and I liked stuff like that, and I like the Beatles too. But like what I'm trying to say is like the William S. Burroughs that freaked me out so bad, and I just thought it was amazing, and I got into, and then in my junior year there was a guy, his name is Bob Bradley. He's a poet in the Nashville area.
All right.
He was my teacher, and he was a really tough. I somehow scored into honors English in my junior year, and I don't know how, because I was a very unattentive student. I'd go to class, but I had a hard time paying attention. But anyways, so he gave me the hardest time. But by the end of the year, I knew how to write an essay and how to write a structure of like a good song type poem, with like the parts.
Well,
and the different.
David, I don't know whether you noticed this. I mean, my experience was that there aren't that many teachers that really have an effect on you. You have a lot of teachers, but there's only, a handful of them that really motivate you and, inspire you.
Good point. I agree with that. Like another teacher, she was a social psychology teacher. It was Giesbrecht Batoli at Tennessee Tech. She's deceased, unfortunately. She was a wonderful person. But yeah, in the sociology courses I took were really inspiring, I guess.
I mean, I can really count on the fingers of my hand how many, teachers really had a measurable impact.
I guess we're blessed with those people, and even
Exactly.
though there are only like 5 people on this Zoom, I just have so much respect for y'all showing up, you know, and feeling like, you know, we're worth your time, because like Brian and I put so much work into what we do, and we're more about like content than we are about notoriety, you know, or we're more about putting on a good show with the materials that we have, and really trying to think of how we can use the limited materials that we have to do something with. And we put a lot of work into it, and I don't know, it's for someone that has the education that you have, and the creativity and all that, it's just really nice to have you on the show. So I don't mean to like grovel. I feel like I'm groveling at this point, but either like a Monty Python or something. But like I don't know.
I'm not worthy.
This is cool. I don't know. I'm just grateful. It's
Well, what's interesting enough is these shows, I feel like, really educate people to show not only the literature stuff global, but other people and other shows that we're all connected. And we're going to make more and more art until you notice it. You know?
Yeah. And I think it was James Floyd? Is it James C. Floyd? Is that?
Yeah, James Floyd.
Okay, so he said on our show a long time ago, we did that tribute for him in Chaos, right?
Right.
And I think it was him that said that you have to really pay attention if you want to know true history. You have to like really look at like local type, you know, records like diaries, journals, books of literature and poetry written by people on a community level, not like a national level, like a history book or whatever. Like, and only there can you really find what history actually was like, where it happened.
Right.
Like the Star Spangled Banner, that was you know, written by an eyewitness account of that the battle of that fort.
Yeah, exactly. The flag was still there. And, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but I mean, obviously I'm British born, but my heart lifts when I hear the Star Spangled Banner. I find it very inspiring.
There's a lot to it, and it breaks my heart that, you know, things are in a state where people just kind of have a low morale about the pride for, you know, this country, you know?
Yeah.
I'm really disappointed a lot of times what happens, you know, on the news and stuff, and what you hear.
Of course.
The way when leaders don't act, I don't know what the word is, professional, I guess. You know, I don't know what the word is. Personable, I guess.
Becoming.
But yeah, I don't like it when people that, you know, we confide in on like a leadership level don't act like personal people. That really frustrates me really bad, especially when they do it on television.
Well, I guess that's one of the reasons that I wanted to do the Walt Whitman tonight about him being a male nurse like Alex Cratty up in Minnesota.
Yeah, that was hard for me to listen to when you were reading that poetry about, you know, all their death and everything. I was grateful to hear it, but like I mean, if you really like think about it, that must have been terrible. And we take for granted the fact that, like, you know, there are a lot of like what ifs. Oh my gosh, this could happen, this might happen. You know, we've been on the fringe of like a Cold War. I mean, really since like, you know, the end of World War II. I mean, they said it was done, and maybe in the early 90s things got cool for a second there, but like, you know, when the Berlin Wall fell. But I mean, overall, we've been at this like stalemate of like, you know, tug of war of, you know, some kind of like, you know, exchange of dominion over whatever, you know, as far as like world powers and stuff, and so many threats and so many potential cataclysmic, horrific events that just, I mean, they happen on small levels in horrific ways for like particular regions.
Sure.
And we don't even see that stuff happening in America, you know, really, if you think about it. I mean, what we're seeing now is really harsh, but I mean, imagine DC burning, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, imagine like Nashville burning. You know, I mean, God forbid. You know what I'm saying? It's just, I mean, you got to really think of it that way. That was only like maybe 175 years ago or something like that, I guess.
What War of 1812?
Well, I guess longer than that. Yeah, but
Yeah, well, we had
210 years.
200 in 2014.
Okay, there
That's
we
about
yeah,
as long.
yeah, I'm behind, but yeah, I get it. Yeah, so the thing is, I mean, if you look at the history of like what we have is recorded, that's like not very much time at all that happened, and for us to like have a track record of 250 years as something that was called the American experiment by, you know, privileged Europeans, you know, and I mean, for us to last like 250 years, we need to like really like not be apathetic about that. You know what I'm saying? We should really cherish that, I feel.
I think America has a lot to be proud of, and you know, I'd really like to celebrate that. I mean, you know, I loved a poem about the Statue of Liberty. You know, give me your tired, your poor, your masses. I mean, we should be welcoming immigrants, and you know, not putting them in prison.
No, like, I mean, my great grandfather, he was from Czechoslovakia, you know, and
Okay, yeah.
He was like really just having a hard time. He tried to move up. I talked about this last time, but he tried to move up in the Austrian-Hungarian military. He could only get far, and then just hit a wall pretty much and couldn't advance. And he went back coal mining in Czechoslovakia, and so then after that, like they got a brochure in the mail. I think is what it was. They got a brochure in the mail. Come work on a ranch for 6 years, and you get your citizenship in America. So he left and took his wife, and they started a family, and they tried to get other people going.
Sure.
And World War I started, and they lost contact with everybody. They didn't talk to
Yeah.
a single person
I'm sure.
them in Europe until I think
Yes.
1950 or something like that.
Yeah.
After World War II, when they finally regained contact, and by that time,
Wow.
time had passed, they were like strangers. And
Yeah, okay.
yeah, they had to completely reestablish like community in Texas, where in their local area, where they met local Czechs and local people, where they got involved in like I think Freemasonry and stuff, and you know just to, like be a part of the community. And it's just that I just think of that, and it's just hard, you know, because we think, you know, politics to me is like Bud Light beer, or like, you know,
Okay.
who do you like, the Patriots or Seattle? Like, I mean, it's just teams, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like when I know my family's really gotten disconnected because of difference of opinion and whatever's on TV, you know, it seems like, and it breaks my heart. Like, there's so much anger and so much disgust because of the pandemic and everything, and it really hurts that I don't know what to say to a lot of people that I used to like see at Thanksgiving every year. Like, I just don't know what to do, you know, and it's like scary sometimes. Blah blah blah.
Well, you know, that was one reason that I was glad that Prasanna Kumar could be with us. I mean, I really value poets that I've met all around the world.
Yes. His poetry tonight really put things in. I love it when people have that kind of rhetoric in their poetry. It really puts things in perspective. It really reminds me of the necessity for humility and seeing yourself as like an individual amongst like millions of individuals, you know, and that we're all equally important, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really respected everything he said. It made me like happy and inspired. Yeah.
Sure.
All right, guys. Well, hey, sounds like we're gonna end the show now. But it's been a lot of fun. And we will try to come back next week. If Chris isn't doing anything next week, I would love to hear next week.
If you want to do it again, we could do it again.
So on the 19th, if you're reviewing this, we're coming back, and we'll have a theme for you in the fight here.
All right.
I agree.
All right.
Right down. Okay, let's do it. Thank y'all.
Here's Paul.
Okay. Thanks for being with us, Frank.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Frank.
It was great seeing you. It was a lot of fun.
See you all next time.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
See you soon. Okay, guys. Bye-bye.
right. Good
Bye.
night.
Bye, guys.
Stop the recording.
Good night.
Good night.